Hey everyone, welcome back to Smart with Points. I'm Jack, your guide through the wonderfully confusing world of miles, points, and pretending you're fancier than you actually are. And Happy New Year to all of you. I hope you've recovered from the festivities and are ready to start collecting points like it's a competitive sport. Because today we've got some genuinely exciting news to kick off 2025. Virgin Hotels Edinburgh has officially joined Virgin Red, which means if you've been hoarding Virgin points like a dragon sitting on a pile of gold, you now have a rather lovely way to spend them without leaving the UK. So let's dive in. Virgin Hotels Edinburgh is now bookable through Virgin Red, and this is actually a pretty big deal. Scotland's capital has just gained a proper 5-star points redemption option, and for those of us who love a good staycation, this is worth paying attention to. Here's what you need to know. The basic redemption rate starts from 60,000 Virgin points per night. Now, before you spit out your coffee, that's for an off-peak chamber room. So yes, you'll pay more during busy periods, or if you fancy upgrading to a nicer room category. But 60,000 points is your baseline. On the earning side, if you book direct with Virgin Hotels, you'll earn 7 Virgin points per pound spent. Not earth-shattering, but it's something. And crucially, points redemptions are available on chamber rooms, though they are subject to availability. So if you're planning a trip during the Edinburgh Fringe or Hogmanay, don't hang about, book early. You'll also need to make sure your The Know and Virgin Red accounts are linked. The Know is Virgin Hotels' loyalty program, and if you haven't connected it to Virgin Red yet, you'll need to do that before you can redeem points. It's straightforward enough through the Virgin Red app. Now the big question, is 60,000 points actually good value? This is where it gets interesting. Virgin Hotels Edinburgh is a genuine 5-star property. It's not some budget chain masquerading as luxury. Cash rates can easily exceed £200 to £300 per night, depending on when you're visiting. So if you're redeeming 60,000 points for a room that would otherwise cost you £250, you're getting around 0.4 pence per point, which, in the world of Virgin points, is actually pretty decent. For context, most Virgin Red redemptions tend to hover around 0.3 to 0.5 pence per point, so this falls right within that reasonable range. That said, and this is important, Virgin Atlantic flights typically offer better value if you're sitting on a large points balance, especially if you're looking at premium or upper class redemptions. Flying business class to New York or the Caribbean is almost always going to give you more bang for your buck than a hotel stay. But here's my take on this. Not every redemption needs to be quote unquote optimal. Travel rewards aren't always about squeezing every last fraction of a penny out of your points. Sometimes they're about making experiences happen that you might otherwise put off. If you fancy a weekend in Edinburgh and you've got Virgin points sitting there doing nothing, this is now a legitimate option. And honestly, treating yourself to a nice hotel without spending cash is reward enough sometimes. Let's talk about the hotel itself. Virgin Hotels Edinburgh is housed within the iconic India buildings, which is a stunning piece of architecture. The hotel recently won Condé Nast Johansson's Best New Hotel for Excellence 2026, which tells you something about the quality on offer. The property blends Gothic arches and rich wood panelling with Virgin's signature contemporary style. It's that mix of historic grandeur and modern design that Virgin Hotels tends to do really well. And location-wise, you're stepping out directly into Edinburgh's Old Town. That means you're within walking distance of the Royal Mile, Edinburgh Castle, and plenty of excellent restaurants and bars. If you've been to Edinburgh, you'll know that location is everything, and being right in the heart of the Old Town is about as good as it gets. If you've stayed at any other Virgin Hotels property, you'll know they tend to deliver a more boutique, design-forward experience compared to the big chain hotels. The Edinburgh location appears to follow that same formula. It's not trying to be a Hilton or a Marriott. It's doing its own thing, and that's part of the appeal. Now, Edinburgh isn't the only Virgin Hotels property available on Virgin Red. You've also got Virgin Hotels London in Shoreditch, plus several properties in the United States, Virgin Hotels New York, Dallas, Nashville, and New Orleans. If you're planning a trip to the States and you have Virgin points to burn, the American properties could be worth considering as part of a larger itinerary, especially if you're already flying Virgin Atlantic across the pond. It creates a nice little ecosystem where your points can cover both the flights and the accommodation. Here's a nice little bonus. You can also earn Virgin points on your journey to Edinburgh. If you book train travel through Virgin Trains ticketing, you'll rack up additional Virgin points on your way there. So you could potentially earn points on both legs of the trip, getting there and staying there. For those of us who collect Virgin points through credit cards, this creates a pretty neat setup where your everyday spending can fund a weekend away in Scotland. Speaking of credit cards, if you don't already have a Virgin Atlantic credit card and you're interested in collecting Virgin points, there are some solid options out there. We've got links in the show notes if you want to check them out, including details on current sign-up bonuses. Just click through and you can get the card directly from there. So, how do you actually book this thing? First, make sure you have a Virgin Red account. If you haven't already, download the Virgin Red app. Then link your Virgin Red account to the Know, which is Virgin Hotels loyalty program. After that, just search for Virgin Hotels Edinburgh on the Virgin Red platform, select your dates, and redeem your points. Easy. But remember, points redemptions are subject to availability, so if you're planning a trip during festival season or other peak times, book early. Edinburgh gets absolutely rammed during the Fringe, Hogmanay, and the Christmas markets, so don't leave it to the last minute. Alright, let's wrap this up with some final thoughts. This is a welcome addition to the Virgin Red platform. Edinburgh is genuinely one of the UK's best cities for a short break. The architecture is stunning, the food scene is excellent, and there's always something happening, whether it's the Fringe Festival in August, Hogmanay at New Year, or the Christmas markets in December. Having a points bookable 5-star option makes it more accessible for those of us sitting on Virgin points balances. Is it the best possible use of 60,000 Virgin points? Probably not if you're purely optimizing for value. But travel rewards aren't always about that. Sometimes they're about making experiences happen. Sometimes they're about treating yourself without dipping into your bank account. And sometimes they're just about having a bloody good weekend in a beautiful city. If you've got Virgin points and you fancy a weekend in Scotland, this is now a legitimate option, and that's worth celebrating. Have you stayed at any Virgin Hotels properties? I'd love to hear your experiences. Drop me a message on Instagram or reach out through the website. I'm always curious to hear what people think of these redemptions in practice. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode of Smart with Points. If you enjoyed it, please do subscribe to the podcast. You can find us on all major platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, or head over to our website at smartwithpoints.co.uk. And now, a quick word from our sponsor. Looking for the best award flights? Use awardtravelfinder.com to search availability across Qatar Airways, British Airways, Cathay Pacific, and more. Try it for free with our link in the show notes.